You're listening to Puma Podcast.
Kilala natin ang Cordillera bilang isang tourist destination. Nandiyan ang Baguio, Mount Pulag, Sagada at iba pa. But have we ever stopped to think about its peoples? Those who don't just come to visit, but whose identity is rooted to the history of this place. Bago nating ipagdiwang ang People's Cordillera Day sa April 24, kilalanin natin ang rehiyong ito at ang mayamang kasaysayan ng pakikibakan ng mga Igorot. Kasama si Joanna Carino, isang Ibaloy, martial law survivor at founding member ng Cordillera People's Alliance. Ako po si Paul Nicolas Soriano, Puma Podcast, and you're listening to Teka Teka. Naimbang nga daw, Manang Joanna. Thank you for joining us here on Teka Teka.
Good afternoon.
And so this April marks the 42nd People's Cordillera Day. But before we talk about what this year's commemoration will be all about, can you take us back to around 42 years ago or so, say the late 1970s to early 1980s? That was when the country was under martial law as well. What kind of situation were indigenous communities in the Cordillera facing at the time?
The impact of martial law in the Cordillera was not only in the late 80s. Actually, it started immediately upon the declaration of martial law. Because first, one of the early executive orders was the regionalization of the Philippines, whereby the Cordillera was not a region. It was divided. Half of it was in Region 1, the Ilocos region, and half of it was in Region 2, the Cagayan Valley region. And therefore, you could see already that there was this effort that the Igorot peoples would not be united. No? And then in the mid 1970s, big flashpoint projects of the dictatorship were earmarked to be implemented in the Cordillera. First was the Chico River Basin Development Project, whereby 4 mega dams were to be built along the Chico River, which would actually involve most of the municipalities of the Mountain Province and 4 municipalities in Kalinga. And then on the other side of the mountains was Marcos had given his crony, Herminio Dicini, 200,000 hectares of communal forests to develop into the Celluphil Resources Corporation, which was a logging and paper pulp concession. And then also, you even had the entry of mines, no, into communities in the mountain province like Mainit.
You are an Igorot yourself, Manang Joanna, and during this time, active na po ba kayo sa movement for IP rights and welfare? Nasaan po kayo nung mga panahon na ito?
I was one of those imprisoned during the Marcos dictatorship. So I was in jail in Camp Olivas from 1974 to 1976. Suddenly, the detention area was suddenly full of Igorots. Some of them were just actually in G-strings, without tops, and I think there were even women, no? So, yung napuno yung detention center. That was the first we heard that they were protesting the Chico dams. And then, so I got released in 1976. I went back to school at the University of the Philippines, Baguio. And then in 1978, I attended my first Budong conference. You had all of these elders, mostly men, elderly, pispat holders and tribal elders, all speaking against the dam and what had to be done to oppose the dam. Now, I can't understand the language, but luckily there were those who were doing translations for us, no? And some of them would even do it in their indigenous, what shall we call it, chant, hymn, no, guttural sounds actually. In this Peace Pact conference, a pagta or an agreement among all of the participants was made.
Para lang din po at just to understand better at sa mga hindi ganoon ka-familiar about the history of the Chico Dam project 'no, bakit po ito sinalubong ng, ganito kalaking resistance at ng mga protesta 'no? Ano ba yung talagang pinakamalaking impact niya para sa kaigurotan sa, indigenous peoples communities sa Cordillera?
Okay. So, the Chico River Basin Development Project was to build 4 mega dams along the Chico River. 2 in Mountain Province and then 2 in Kalinga. No, so the Chico River, its headwaters are here in Mount Data in Mountain Province. It flows through the whole Mountain Province, then it goes to Kalinga, and then it exits there to the Cagayan out to the sea. So they contracted a German agency for the feasibility study, and then this was to be funded by the World Bank. And then, there was also an oil crisis then pareho as ngayon. So people now again were looking for alternative sources of power, and therefore hydroelectric power was really a great priority. Ngayon, 1974, the National Power Corporation came into the communities and then already wanted to do survey. And then the people didn't know anything about this at all. You had already these outsiders coming to survey this land. Now, um, you have the concept of ili, land and people, no? So these areas are basically ancestral lands that have been nurtured, developed, and protected by these indigenous communities since time immemorial. And therefore, when outsiders came to survey the land, there was already resistance because they didn't know what was happening. And to start with, the priority then was Chico 2, the dam that was to be built uh, along the Chico River in Sadanga in Mountain Province. I think it would be good to recognize certain people, no, who had a great role to play in bringing out initial research on this. One was Bishop Francisco Claver, SJ, Roman Catholic bishop. He is Bontoc, and he had gone there, and the people were already saying, "What is this?" and were asking the church to intervene and stop this. Another one was a Filipina Bicolana anthropologist doing research in Tanglag in Kalinga, a Mariflor Parpan, and she had written an open letter about the Chico dams. And then the Roman Catholic Church, they had this program, SCAPS, where they had some organizers in the communities, and so the people were already asking them. And then later in 1976, the Catholic Church set up the Episcopal Commission on Tribal Filipinos, which then was also giving some support. And then the Social Action Center. We were working closely with the Social Action Center because this was the one documenting actually all of these things that were happening. So at first, the people tried all kinds of what did they do? They tried petitions. No, first you had those open letters of the bishop, and then they tried petitions. Then they tried to go to Malacanang. In fact, they sent delegations to Malacanang. They tried 5 times, but they were not even being faced, and they were just being um, sent away as being sentimental and anti-development. And so, actually, it was already escalating because um, the National Power Corporation was already trying to set up workstations where they would set up the dams. And then the people started dismantling these workstations, no? And then so it was escalating. And then the Marcos dictatorship did so many things. They sent the presidential assistant for national minorities, Panamin, Manda Elizalde. He went there to bribe the people. He brought out many women. And then, siyempre, after that, they tried to co-opt some of the leaders. They armed certain groups against the opposition. So, I mean, it was really already getting more and more intense, the resistance, no? And then when all of this were failing, they brought in the military because after all this was a military dictatorship, and therefore it was already the military that was there to implement the project, no? But these are also tribal communities. These are tribal communities and they are warrior communities actually, because a large part of the Chico the area that was to be affected, it would affect something 100,000 people. So many communities, not only the communities along the Chico, because of course there are so many communities there because you build along the rivers. And when the military came in, actually then New People's Army was also expanding into the area. And actually, and this is naman a fact of history, so many sons and daughters of these communities really joined the New People's Army. So talagang it was already escalating so much, ano. There was really already armed struggle also happening here in these areas. And not only in the Chico areas, but even across the mountain in the cellophile areas, because they had already started logging and then sending down the logs through the river and everything like that, no? So it was really already escalating. So human rights violations were also already rampant, no? Marami ng pinapatay, marami na ngang kinukulong, yun na nga, 250 men, women, and children ikinulong sa Bulanao, sa Tabuk, pero later on, yun nga, yung iba diyan napunta pa hanggang Camp Olivas kasi punong-puno na yung diyaan sa Bulanao, sa Tabuk, ganyan. So, this was really already basically, it was already a battlefield. And to think nga that these largely unlettered communities, ano, were able to put up this kind of resistance against a very strong dictator. Kumbaga we say, siyempre we credit people power for EDSA. Pero in this battlefield, it was really indigenous people's power that stopped Chico and that stopped Celiophil during the martial law dictatorship.
Thank you very much po, and very interesting and very helpful historical context. Kasi kahit naman po ngayon, 'di ba, 'pag pinag-uusapan natin ang martial law, we know for a fact that there were thousands of human rights violations, there were thousands who were tortured, but the situation in many areas outside Manila, na katulad nitong sa Cordillera, no, ay mahalaga din po pala na mapag-usapan, no. So let's talk about the date. April 24 is People's Cordillera Day. And bakit po ito ang naging petsa? Can you also tell us the story? What are the events that basically led to April 24, 1980?
In February of 1980, just 2 months before April 24 of 1980, nagkaroon actually ng parang nagtawag uli ng dialogue yung National Power Corporation dito sa Baguio. So tinawag niya uli, tried to bring the leaders of the resistance, no? Kasi they were not able to do anything sa Mountain Province, they shifted it to Kalinga. So during this period, the priority now was Chico 4. So a busload of, again, tribal leaders, elders, etc. came for this dialogue. And then they stopped through the Social Action Center for some briefing before going. Pero, then the Social Action Center joined them in that meeting. So there is documentation actually of this meeting. Tapos andiyan na naman yung mga magigiting na mga tribal leaders were really speaking up against the dams. No, we will not allow it, etc., etc. Makliing Dulag was really one of the most articulate um, oppositors, no, to the dam project. Kumbaga ang ganda-ganda ng kanyang mga sinasabi. In fact, 'di ba? I mean, there are really quite a number of quotable quotes from him. This was in February 1980. So it was only 2 months. In other words, wala na namang nangyari. So sobrang na ang galit at ang ngit-ngit talaga ng dictatorship against the resistance to Chico. So what happened on April 24, 1980? That was also to be expected, no? A platoon of army led by Lieutenant Yodegario Adalem entered Bugnay at the dead of night. Ngayon at that time, medyo yung hanging bridge lang across the Chico River yun Talagang medyo nakakatakot na hanging bridge, and sometimes they would even take it down so that wala ngang makapasok. Pero anyway, pinasok nga ng unarmed platoon of AFP. Niratrat nila yung bahay ni Maclean Dulag, niratrat nila yung bahay ni Pedro Dungok, and then they left. So namatay si Maclean Dulag. Severely wounded naman si Pedro Dungok, who was actually he was the teacher in Bugnay, no? Who was also one of those who was always in all of these meetings since he was nga the teacher, interpreter, teacher, etc. Ganun. And then it came right after nga yung confrontation of these tribal elders with the National Power Corporation and the military. Ganyan. Of course, that assassination was intended to sow fear on the people so that nga itigil nyo na yan pinaggagawa nyo because this is what the answer of the dictatorship will be. Parang ganyan. Pero hindi natakot yung tao. Instead, the people turned whatever fear, no, it was really more anger, rage, and greater resistance. 2 months after that, there was an international fact-finding mission into the assassination of Maclean Dulag. No, so the former senators Jokno and Tanyada, Japanese press, and then religious like Sister Mariani, etc., mga ganun. Lawyers came to Kalinga to investigate the assassination of Maclean. In fact, I do not know if you've seen that photo. That photo where Maclean, Jokno and Tanyada actually took off their shirts. Kasi they were met by all of these tribal elders in their G-strings and without tops. So they took off their shirts to be in solidarity with them. And then they have linked arms with these tribal elders. It reached a greater audience, not only nationally but even internationally. So, kumbaga dumadami yung nakakaalam ng mga nangyayari dito sa Cordillera, ganyan.
All right. And you mentioned you were there sa fact-finding mission, but any recollection po, because you mentioned as well that you were already a youth activist during this time, any recollection like nung araw na nalaman po ninyo itong nangyari kina Maclean Dulag at kay Pedro Dungok, what was the situation like?
Okay. No, first myself, I had just started teaching at UP Baguio kasi 1980, June. I had just started teaching in June, pero in April, hindi pa nga, I mean, I had just parang graduated kasi I was a returning student, and then I was recruited to UP Baguio. Pero yung support groups of the Chico struggle, lalo na, for instance, the Episcopal Church that was based in Mountain Province, they immediately they went to the community, and that's why the early documentation of that is actually from these people who had gone from Bontoc to Bugnay to find out from the community and the people what had happened. No, so the Episcopal Church, and then what's his name, Bishop Abelion. He was the bishop then of the Episcopal Church in the Mountain Province, and then the Social Action Center also, Father Pat Guyguyon, no? So these were, kasi Macleing was very involved in all of the, the activities, the Budong conferences, the negotiations, etc. So actually, he was really known by and respected by so many people. So, siyempre talagang, of course, there is immense grief that such a respected and, a very, um, kumbaga, ang galing-galing na leader ay papatayin, mamamatay, ganyan, na martir, basically. Of course, doon sa community itself, so they had to deal with this. They had to bury him. The door riddled with blood, etc., ganyan, which later on was exhibited pa at the museum at the university. And then, of course, parang getting the news out, etc., ganyan. Pero I think nga precisely, ang predominant pang response ay galit. Kasi alam naman kung sino ang responsible. Ano? Alam naman na that is really blood at the hands of the dictatorship, ganyan. So, I think immediately, people were already beginning to say, "So, okay, how do we respond to this? How do we provide support? What should be done?" etc., ganyan.
I studied in Baguio in the Cordillera, so I'm quite familiar very well with the People's Cordillera Day. But I think that's also interesting, no? People's Cordillera Day. And I know this is not just a name to have that word there, people's. Ano po yung significance of reminding the public and the communities, like every year, that this is a people's celebration, commemoration?
Yeah. So after the June International Fact-Finding Mission, that was June of 1980, the date, that significant date of the martyrdom of Macleing Dulag was commemorated as Macleing Memorial. Then it became Macleing and Martyrs Memorial. Because actually, hindi lang naman siya ang namartir nga in this people's resistance, no? And then, these memorial commemorations were getting bigger. Siyempre, the first memorial, basically, it's always like that. A host community would invite all of their peace pact partners. And so, it's actually, I mean, so many people gathering. And then there were also now support groups like us who were able to attend, no? Ganyan. So, I was at UP Baguio then. So, there were some, students and faculty from UP Baguio, then the media from Baguio who would be attending these commemorations. Bagamat it was still priority project actually nga of the dictatorship, Chico and Celiophil. At that time, wala na silang magawa eh. Kumbaga talagang the people's resistance had already effectively stopped. From 1981 to 1984, April 24, was commemorated as Macleing and Martyrs Memorial. And then in 1985, for the first time, this was now transformed into Cordillera Day. No? So this was the first Cordillera Day was held in Belwang, in Sadanga Mountain Province. And then at this time, by this time, the Cordillera People's Alliance had already been organized because we organized Cordillera People's Alliance in 1984. And therefore, the first Cordillera Day was sponsored by the Cordillera People's Alliance with the Cordillera Budong Association, which was the organization of these pact holders, no, in these communities. And of course, the Ili, the community of Bulwang in Sadanga. So that was in 1985. And then in 1986, Cordillera Day was celebrated in Bontoc Mountain Province because this was already shortly after the EDSA democratic uprising. So that was in February of 86. And then in February 86, we celebrated Cordillera Day in Bontoc Mountain Province. And then in succeeding years, the next year it was in Ifugao, etc. It has already been brought to communities all over the region, no? In all of the different provinces of the region. Basically, it is brought usually to where there is a flashpoint issue, no, like a struggle against the dams or a struggle against a mining corporation, um, like that. And then, ano ba yung content ng Cordillera Day? Kasi it's not only one day. If it's in the community, it's 2 days or 3 days. No? So, syempre, always, you have the discussion talaga of the people's issues in the region. No? And also in the nation. So, in the region and at the national level. Of course, there is so much cultural happening. There is dancing, there is singing. There is, of course, solidarity, no, from the wider national and even international friends of the Cordillera kasi marami talaga ang pumupunta from national organizations and from international partners and friends, no, of the Cordillera, ganyan. Why do we say it is the People's Cordillera Day? First of all, so it was actually the mass movement, the indigenous people's mass movement in the Cordillera that declared April 24 as Cordillera Day in 1985 for the first time. In 1986, after the EDSA democratic uprising, and when Cory Aquino was the president, she went into peace talks in quotes, with the Cordillera People's Liberation Army that was led by Conrado Balweg, which was actually a split group from the New People's Army in the Cordillera. So they went into what they called a sipat, which are basically um, like the start of a peace pact. That's the sipat. Exchanging of tokens. And what was it that she gave? In fact, she gave yata a baby Armalite to Conrado Balweg. That was done in Mount Data. In 1986 also, earlier in the year, before the SIPAT, the Cordillera People's Alliance had organized a lobby of the Constitutional Commission, which was then ongoing, preparing for the 1987 Constitution. At naglabi kami to include the recognition of ancestral land and regional autonomy in the new Constitution. Tapos naglabi kami ilang beses going to talk to the commissioners kasi hindi na nila alam yung indigenous peoples, ancestral land, self-determination, autonomy, and therefore talagang kinailangan na kausapin about these things. It was interesting that while we were lobbying for this, there was also a strong lobby from the South for autonomy naman in Muslim Mindanao, no? Nagsasalubong kami doon sa Constitutional Commission. Pero in any case, naipas ngayon those kung ano yung nilabi, yung the recognition of the right to ancestral land and then for regional autonomy in Muslim Mindanao and in the Cordillera. And then actually, before that pa, the Cordillera People's Alliance was one of the early groups that Corazon Aquino had invited to Malacanang to meet with because of our role in the anti-dictatorship struggle. So in any case, but after that, after she went into the peace talks with the Cordillera People's Liberation Army, tapos alam naman natin that actually the military was still controlled by the human rights violators, the torturers, and really, etc. They were still the ones there. Hindi naman, wala namang held accountable at all for all of the rights violations during the dictatorship. They were still all in place. Sa totoo lang, ganyan. And therefore, yung usapin ng red tagging, ganyan, no, they used the Cordillera People's Liberation Army to talagang red tag, hindi lang red tag. Talagang some of our leaders were killed, no, by the Cordillera People's Liberation Army, which they even acknowledged publicly. Pero yun na nga, parang this group was the one that was being coddled by the Aquino administration. And ginagamit siyempre ng military for counterinsurgency. Those years were difficult years for the Cordillera People's Alliance. Now, why am I going into this? Because the government then declared July 15 as Cordillera Day. What happened on July 15 was a result nga of that sipat of Corazon Aquino with the Cordillera People's Liberation Army. And that's where she signed the executive order creating the Cordillera Administrative Region as a first step towards the Cordillera Autonomous Region, no? Which was actually, it's there nga in the Constitution. So parang as a preparatory step to the Cordillera Autonomous Region. Kaya lang, in that executive order, talagang nabigyan talaga ng favored position yung CPLA. Parang sila yung naging kingpin dito sa Cordillera, parang gano'n. Whereas, at that time, they were also trying now to marginalize the mass movement and the Cordillera People's Alliance and to take over even Cordillera Day because they just announced it already as Cordillera Day, whereas meron na ngang Cordillera Day that since 1984 had already been celebrated in different places in the region, in Balwang, in Bontoc, in Lagawe, no? Ganyan. So, actually, here in the Cordillera ngayon, there are 2 Cordillera Days.
Since you have also mentioned already the 1987 executive order that birthed legally the Cordillera Administrative Region as we now know, and yet 4 decades, almost 4 decades after, no, kasama pa rin po sa mga panawagan ng People's Cordillera Day ang genuine regional autonomy, right? Ano po ang ibig sabihin nito, like in more concrete terms for your communities, for the Cordillera Indigenous Peoples communities? Ano ba itong genuine regional autonomy?
Since the Cordillera People's Alliance was organized in 1984, dala-dala na namin yan as a campaign, yung regional autonomy as a form of self-determination in the Cordillera. And even in our lobby at the Constitutional Commission, parang ganun din, regional autonomy. Ngayon, we again have to qualify this with the term genuine. Kasi the process also of how government tried to implement the constitutional provision on regional autonomy for the Cordillera has been problematic, no, to say the least. Kasi nung una, kailangan daw magtayo ng Cordillera Regional Consultative Committee, na mag-usap-usap, mag-draft ng legislation, kaya lang it has to be brought to Congress kasi Congress naman ang gagawa ng legislation, etc. Ganyan. So, what has happened through the years, many years na nga eh, dekada na nga eh. So, was it in 1990? The first draft of the Organic Act, so ang tawag sana Organic Act for the Cordillera Autonomous Region na drinaft nga ng isang Cordillera Regional Consultative Conference pero then brought to Congress and then winottered down ng Congress, etc. In 1990, you have to bring it to a plebiscite. Eh, nag-no ang Cordillera except for Ifugao. Ifugao ba? I can't even remember na. Ganyan, so wala. So every Congress, the Cordillera legislators will try na naman to submit a draft for the Cordillera Autonomous Region. In 1997, meron na naman hinarap sa people in a plebiscite. Hindi na naman siya nanalo. No, except for Apayao naman that time. Ganyan. So, up to the present time, hindi pa talaga siya pumapasa. What are the reasons behind this? One, of course, so much education is still really needed, no? For this concept of regional autonomy as a form of self-determination in the Cordillera. Two, siguro the first time, kung ang nangangampanya naman is the Cordillera People's Liberation Army, marami din ang aayaw talaga. In fact, kahit nga kami yung nag-lobby for regional autonomy, at that time papaano kakampanya kung ang kwan naman, nangangampanya naman ay yung CPLA at saka yung Aquino regime, and then talagang it's just for their own purposes. And then, siyempre actually, let's grant, in fact, I think many Cordillera professionals were really campaigning for this because that's going to set up actually a new bureaucracy, 'di ba, in the region. New positions will be held, a regional governor, etc., ganyan. But our position has been, no, in relation to this whole process, regional autonomy should not only be formal. What do we mean? You speak of a form. You set up a bureaucracy. Pero in terms of the substance or the essence, hindi naman talaga autonomy. Why? Because national government still insists on using the Cordillera as a resource base for interests that do not benefit the people of the Cordillera. What kind of autonomy is that? Especially if you say that it is a form of self-determination. The self-determination of the peoples of the Cordillera have always been in defense of their land, their life, their honor. And yet, yung regional autonomy na gusto naman ng ipataw ngayon ay hindi naman yan kikilanlin. So, hindi din talaga yan tunay na self-determination.
Ngayong taon po, ano ang mga usapin na lalamanin nito pong People's Cordillera Day?
The issues really are still development aggression, no? So, in Apayao, 4 huge dams are to be built along the Apayao River. In Kalinga, no, you have the Saltan dams along the Saltan River. You have dams along the Chico River. In Ifugao, in like manner, no, you also have the issue still also of dams. In all over the region, the issue of large destructive mining corporations. I mean, some of these have reached the news, no? In Itogon, nagbarikada sila. It's continuing, di ba? In the Likno community against expansion of corporate mines. In Mangkayan, there is also people's opposition. Recently, if you will note, in Abra, in Salapadan, in Lacub, people have come out with petitions, no, position papers against yung pasok ng Yamang Mineral Mining Corporation. In Abra, also issue of dams aside from the mines.
Sa inyo pong opinion, what lessons from the life and struggles of Macleing Dulag along with other martyrs of the Cordillera against the Chico Dam and other development aggression projects, ano po yung pinaka-relevant hanggang sa ngayon para sa mga younger generations?
There is this traditional practice, indigenous practice of futad. Basically, whole communities in defense of land, life, and honor. At nakita natin yan diyan sa resistance against Chico, sa resistance against Celiophil. Siyempre, we really draw inspiration, no, from their valor, from their integrity, from their parang thinking of the wider community and not of themselves, of their willingness to sacrifice even their lives in the struggle. Talagang very, very inspiring talaga itong mga indigenous communities and indigenous leaders na actually ang pagtingin nga ng lipunan sa kanila powerless, neglected, marginalized, etc. Pero during the dark years of martial law, sila nga ang nanguna dyan During the dark years of martial law, talagang pinakita na ang pinakamagiting na depensa ng land and environment, life and honor. And of course, actually that was also the inspiration for, it inspired the Kaigorotan mass movement, and it inspired the organization of the Cordillera People's Alliance and so many others. As I reach my golden years, yung so many of us who have been in this struggle for so long, syempre, ano na kaya ang susunod na kabanata? Pero we are hopeful. Why? Kasi ang dami-daming youth activists who are there and who are continuing the struggle. Ganyan. Tapos, as one Asian spokesman said nga, a tree lives, a tree dies, the forest lives forever. So meron mang mga nauna na, meron ng namartir like Macleing, meron ng mga namatay from among the early leaders of the resistance. Nagpapatuloy pa rin ang pakikibaka sa Cordillera for land, the environment, life, and honor because we follow in their footsteps. And there are the young people who will follow in our footsteps. And therefore, the forest lives forever.
Before People's Cordillera Day was a celebration, it was a struggle. Today, the cause led by Igorot martyr Macleing Dulag still resonates. Land is life. Ang lupa ay buhay. At para sa mga katutubong mamamayan sa Cordillera, ang pagtatanggol sa lupang ninuno ay pagtindig para sa buhay, kabuhayan, at karapatan sa sariling pagpapasya. You've been listening to Teka Teka. Ako po si Paul Nicolas Soriano. This episode is produced by Trisha Aquino and audio edited by Anthony Tobias. Subscribe to Teka Teka on Spotify or Tupuma Podcast on YouTube. Thanks for listening.